Hello, everybody. I am Conquering History Games, and welcome to something kind of different on the channel that maybe is something I'll do occasionally more often. And I'm going to be doing some election predictions here. And we're going to try this out with the U.S. election, and then maybe going forward, I could do it on other elections around the world. I'm on the 270towin.com website just because it's pretty simple to work with. If you have any other suggestions for websites for this that I could use, please let me know in the comments below. I'm also recording this on Halloween, October 31st, 2020. It probably is not going to go up today. And I'm going to be doing a video also on the Senate races in the United States, and then I'm going to do a third video where I'm going to talk about the House races, which is the House of Representatives, the lower legislative branch, lower half of the legislative branch. I'm going to talk about it broadly, and I'm going to zoom in on some particularly interesting districts. For the Senate and the House, I'm not going to go over every single race. I just don't have time for that. And anyway, what I wanted to just do here is we're going to take a look at the 2020 map. First thing is we're going to look, this is what the 2012 map was like. When it was President Obama versus Mitt Romney, when Obama was winning his second term. Then we've got the 2016 race, which was Clinton versus Trump, which Trump won and he became president. And excluding the faithless electors, because this is a thing that I think people kind of forget, is Colin Powell got third place for the president of the United States in 2016 because 3 faithless electors voted for him. So there's your fun fact for the day. Anyway, and then here is the 2020 consensus. I'm actually not entirely sure what they base this off of, but meaning this specific site. Anyway, we're actually just going to go to the 2016 actual, and then I'm going to... what we're going to do is there's going to be a cut, and I'm going to show you the battleground states, and then we're going to modify from there. Okay, so I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. I think I did this right. By the way, I know I probably shouldn't have to say this, but I am in no way endorsing or leaning or discussing my preferences personally in terms of the politics of this election. As you guys know, I don't like to reveal my personal stuff. I don't even tell my close friends who I vote for or my family. That's just how it is. And this is just me kind of doing some political math, electoral geeking out. That's all that this is. So anyway, I have here everything that's blank. I've blanked out because I want to talk about it bit by bit. These are not all necessarily battleground states. Even though some people in Fantasyland like to pretend they are. Like, for example, people who think that Indiana or South Carolina is going to flip to Biden. I don't live in a fantasy world, so I don't think that's going to happen. Now, President Obama did win Indiana, for example, but that was obviously that was an incredible wave year. There was a lot of extenuating circumstances. Anyway, so I guess we'll just go generally. Let's go north to south. So in 2017, not 2017. In 2016, this went. Hold on a second. I have notes in the other page. So yeah, in 2016, most of Maine went for the Democrat Hillary Clinton, except for their second district, which is the rural area. It comprises most of the state, actually. We're talking like 82%, because it's just basically everything that's not on the coast. But I think that, according to the polls that I've been seeing, that's just going to flip over to Biden pretty easily. Oh, I forgot to mark New Hampshire. New Hampshire is going to go for Biden as well. He's going to have the Northeast pretty locked up. Minnesota, I think, is going to pretty clearly go for Biden. It's not really that much of a battleground state. Certainly not as much as the Rust Belt areas anyway. Moving along east into the Great Lakes region, we've got Wisconsin, which the other day had an absolutely ridiculous poll from the ABC News / Washington Post poll, which is an A+ rated poll. I've looked into their methodology. It does seem to be good, but it's just one of those gut instinct things that doesn't seem to be right. I'm talking about the poll that had Biden winning it by 17 points, which would be just completely insane. because from what I was able to look up, the last time that any presidential candidate, I'm talking about President Obama during the 2008 wave, I'm talking Reagan, I'm talking, all sorts of things. There hasn't been a candidate that has won by that huge of a percent since Lyndon Johnson beat Barry Goldwater in 1964 when he was coming off of passing the Civil Rights Act as well as JFK being shot, and that'll give a little bit of sympathy, So I absolutely don't think that the numbers are going to be that high. In fact, I think it's indicative of a trend sort of nationwide where the Democrats are being overestimated. But nevertheless, Wisconsin will indeed go to Biden. Now Michigan, I think was the incidentally, I've not geeked out and researched all of this nearly as much as I did back in 2016 because I'm much busier now. In fact, I'm kind of just getting this done before work today. Anyway, so Michigan, I think, if I remember correctly, was the closest state in the presidential race in 2016. It came to a matter of like a few 10,000 votes, something like I think it was 30 to 40,000 votes. And there was a lot of factors that flipped that over to Trump. Obviously, the Trump overperformed relative to the polls, but there was also things like the third-party vote. Third-party votes were much more relevant relatively in 2016 than they are now, where you had Gary Johnson running as a Libertarian and Stein as the Green Party. The Libertarians and the Green Party still, of course, are running national presidential candidates, but JoJo and Hawkins are just not getting the traction that we saw from the third parties back in 2016. So I think with all of that combined, Biden's appeal to the Rust Belt, he's been pushing hard for it over the last several days. I think that Michigan is going to be safely in Biden's camp. And then, of course, we have the crucial Pennsylvania. I think back in 2016 when Pennsylvania got called, that was a real wake-up call for a lot of the country. Anyway, but that was also another very close race. You see, I think that people on the right, and again, I'm just speaking generally. All of this I'm speaking in a neutral fashion. I might throw out some harsh roasts and slang, but occasionally, especially once we get to the Senate and the House races. But I think Trump's popularity in Pennsylvania is a little bit overblown right now, and from what we're seeing with the polling numbers, even if he overperforms them, it's a bit of a margin to overcome. So I think that Pennsylvania is going to get called. Incidentally, sorry, I'm just I should have made notes before I made this video. I'm making all of these projections based on just if every vote gets counted. I'm not going to get into mail-in voting and absentee ballots. And I sure as hell did not learn what all 50 states' individual voting rules are in terms of how they count early voting. So, for example, I believe, and I could be wrong on this, there's 50 frickin' states, I might be mixing them up in my head, but I think Pennsylvania is going to open up their early voting ballot boxes at 7 in the morning local time and start counting. But, for example, is it Michigan? Was it Michigan or North Carolina? But one of them... And there might be a third one that I'm forgetting. They're not going to start counting their ballots until their early voting ballots into the evening after the polls close. So a lot of these states, some of them we're going to hear called on election night. Some of them we're not. I think we all need, unless there is just an enormous Biden landslide, which, by the way, I do think Biden's going to win, as you can already see by the electoral count. Unless there is just an overwhelming landslide by Joe Biden, we're not going to get a definitive winner on election night for one reason or the other. But anyway, so then Ohio. I skipped over Ohio. Ohio is increasingly being called, well, not increasingly, it's for many, many years, decades really, has been called a battleground state. Often, as goes Ohio, goes the nation. But when you look at the internal legislative bodies and just trends of Ohio, outside of the really big cities, it's definitely red. It's definitely Republican. It's becoming increasingly so. There's a lot of reasons for this. There's entire towns in Ohio that are tied to the military-industrial complex, which, they're they're like, you'll have a whole city whose survival depends on that sort of thing. So they're going to be voting to the right. And of course, as goes Ohio, goes Iowa. Although, to be a little more specific, I think if between these two, Iowa definitely has a better chance of going blue than Ohio. It's now, I don't live in Ohio, but it's my understanding that a lot of the state has been getting really pissed over the results of the trade war with China, and other things as well. It is getting a little bit more urban. The demographics of the state are changing. However, the thing that's kind of tipping it over into being red for me is there have been a lot of reports of well, they're not reports, they're facts, but a lot of polling places were shut down as a result of COVID, and there's just fewer places to vote than there were in 2016, and it has these closures have disproportionately been happening in urban and minority communities, so that's going to suppress the Democratic vote, which, sorry if that triggers anybody. I'm just speaking. I'm just saying what I'm seeing. I'm a third party observer for all of this. So I think Iowa is gonna go red. Now, Nebraska, you might be going, well, isn't Nebraska gonna go red? Yes, it is. But there's just one little thing that I was gonna say. I think that Nebraska's second district is gonna go blue. So we're gonna get a little drop, one electoral drop of the Democrats in there. Nevada is going blue. It's actually swinging further to the left. Of course, a lot of people are talking about the Latino vote, but see, the Latino vote is not a monolith at all, and it's just Latino vote does not always necessarily indicate liberal vote anymore, and that's something that we need to be keeping in mind as we go forward. Especially, like, and I'm going to talk about this a lot more probably in the Senate races or the House races, but it's one of those things, whenever I see political pundits talking, or like whether it's talking about it on TV or on the radio, or they're doing it in an article, when they talk about the Latino vote being a monolith, and they're not understanding the subdivisions within the Latino vote, the most obvious one being Cubans, the children of Cuban immigrants who went to Florida, very anti-Castro, very reactionary sentiment. We're talking about people whose like grandparents, I wouldn't be surprised if they wouldn't go use the public library because that's far too socialist for them, if I could make it that joke. Yeah, anytime when I hear talk about the Latino vote being like a uniform thing, I just turn it off or ignore this person because they don't have a fucking clue. Pardon my cursing. So anyway, but Nevada, all that aside, Nevada is swinging increasingly to the left. The thing that kind of puts this over the top for me especially was back during the primaries. You may remember that story of where I think it was the Culinary Union of Nevada did not endorse Bernie. I think I don't remember if they endorsed a specific candidate, but I think they did say not to vote for Bernie Sanders. And then the union workers went out and voted for Bernie Sanders anyway. Obviously, Bernie Sanders being the most leftist of the mainstream Democrats that ran this year in the primary. So yeah, I think Nevada is going to be safely in Joe Biden's win column. Now we're going to come back to Arizona. Now here's one which I think is going to be a teeny bit of an upset. I think that Biden is going to pick up North Carolina. Now, Obama won this back in 2008. That was a pretty big deal. And then in 2012, he still performed very well across the country. He only lost Indiana and North Carolina. I think those were the only two states that switched over to Mitt Romney. But yeah, North Carolina went red in 2012. It went red in 2016. But I think Biden, with his strong, he performs very well in the African American community. He's going to, and by the way, you might be noticing I'm mostly talking about Biden because I think like it's just how I would talk about any incumbent. Like I wouldn't really talk about them very much because they're somebody who's defending their lead, you could say. So, you got to assume that everybody who already voted for Trump is going to still vote for him, unless something something Biden does is going to pull them away. So that's why I'm talking about Biden and why Biden is flipping states or not flipping states. And that's why I was just like, okay, Ohio's red. It's getting redder. End of story. Anyway, I really should make notes for my future videos. Anyway, so yeah, between Biden having a strong appeal to the African American vote, um, and the state of North Carolina is becoming increasingly blue. It's still a battleground state. It's not like Virginia. Virginia's not a battleground state anymore. Don't let anybody tell you it is. I think North Carolina is going to flip blue, and that's going to be one of the major coups of. Well, maybe I shouldn't be using that word with the tensions in this country, but that's going to be seen as a big upset for him to pick that up. Now, I don't think he's going to get South Carolina. I know there's that Senate race, which I'll talk about in that video, but Biden's not going to pick up South Carolina. End of story. So now we were talking about this upset in North Carolina. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are looking at this map, going, "Okay, Biden picked up these Great Lakes states. He picked up Pennsylvania. He's picking up Nevada. He's definitely getting Arizona." I actually think this is going to be my personal outsider pick for the night. I don't think Biden's going to get Arizona, even though it's become this really big narrative. And in a way, it kind of looks like it's going to trend that way. More youth vote, more Latino vote in Arizona. The state has been trending left for the last few years. But I think this is too dependent on youth vote and Latino vote, and they don't vote. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's like people are going to say I'm being racist or something, but Latinos especially, they just don't vote in the numbers that they theoretically should. So if you're depending on that as the Democrats to get Arizona, it's not going to happen. You're going to lose. So I think Arizona's not going blue. And hey, I could obviously be wrong about all of this. Let's come over here to Texas. So Texas is where I live, and there's a lot of factors going on here. Although, funny thing, and I'll talk about her race late in the House of Representatives video. But I live in El Paso, which is obviously on the very further and western tip of Texas. And what's really funny, I guess it's a media market thing. The airwaves have been getting absolutely bombarded, not so much with presidential ads, but with this ones for like Xochitl Torres Small. So the most that either for or against her, and she's a New Mexican congresswoman. So even though I live in Texas, I see mostly New Mexico ads on TV. Anyway, the turnout in Texas has been enormous. I've been seeing, although I have not seen double verified reports, everybody seems to be going off the same singular source, but allegedly Texas has already had more people vote in this year's election than ever have in its entire history. And obviously, and that was on Thursday. We still had Friday's early voting, and then of course there's going to be Election Day itself. Now, a lot of people are saying that this is going to result in Texas going blue. It has been getting bluer. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Biden is going to lose because I think people are underestimating how many of these, let's call them activated voters, this activated electorate, are just Republicans who usually stay home because they see Texas as being very safe. Because Texas has extremely low turnout. It has for my whole life. In 2016, I think in terms of voter turnout percentage, it was 47th in the country out of 50 states. Very bad, obviously. And especially where I live, El Paso, Texas. We're beginning higher turnout as per the early voting. And if I could be a little bit vulgar for a minute, I think if we hit like 40% turnout in this city, people's arms are going to fall off from jerking themselves off too much. Because like, if you go back and look at my community tab during where I've shown like the stats of elections in El Paso, it's very, very typical that it's just single digit turnout. Anyway, so Texas is still going to go red. Okay, Georgia. Now, Georgia is one I've actually been having trouble looking into because there was the purge of the voter rolls a couple of years ago, and Brian Kemp, the guy who did it, is still governor of Georgia. Georgia also has a couple of Senate races going on. That's like a special circumstance. So it's my understanding that Democrats, including that woman who ran for governor, what's her name, Stacey Abrams. They've been trying to re-register a lot of people, get new voters registered, and the numbers I've heard is that there are about 1 million and a little bit of change additional voters were registered before the deadline hit. However, I think that there was something like 1.5 million that were purged off the voter rolls in 2018, so that's still a net loss. Now, the state is trending blue. And not the whole country is trending blue, by the way. Like I've said, like Iowa is, I think, actually getting redder. Ohio is definitely getting redder. So it all kind of depends. But I just think that the Democrats are pushing for something that they just aren't able to get there. Georgia's not going to flip. So we're gonna be seeing that still stay red. And then finally, everybody's favorite state on election night, the one that everybody's always talking about, good old Florida. Now Florida, again, lots of interesting factors at play here. Florida was a state that had been won by Obama, who obviously Joe was vice president to. But we had Trump pick it up in 2016. Obviously, huge Latino voter population, but it's a lot of Cubans. The Cubans do not vote Democrat. Certainly not when you compare them proportionally to other Latino subgroups such as Mexicans and whatnot. You've also got Puerto Ricans who are living in Florida, and there was that endorsement by the current governor of Florida, Governor Vasquez. She endorsed Trump as well. Also, COVID is a major factor in Florida. For example, when France went into this mandatory mask mandate a few weeks ago, or was it, I don't know, time dilation in 2020, man, it's tough. But they did that when France was hitting about 50 people infected per 100,000 people. And so then out of curiosity, I was comparing it to the United States. And at the time, Florida was at something like 239 per 100,000 people were infected. And then plus Florida's Florida. just you never know with Florida. But the internals of the state have been trending increasingly red. Lots of seniors in Florida, but seniors are breaking big time for Biden, according to the polling. So a real pickle to call. However, I am ultimately going to say that it's going red. In fact, I feel so confident that, again, if I could be gruesome for a second, if Florida goes blue on election night or in the days after, whatever, it's literally because enough Republicans in there died from COVID. I'm sorry if that's cruel and gruesome or whatever, but it's just, I think it would literally be a case of that would be the tipping point where a lot of them died and their family members were upset, so they vote against the president because of it. But ultimately, I think this is, oh goodness, what did I just do? Yeah, that's going to be the, oh dang it, do I have to redo this? Yes, I do. Okay, well, that's fine. So, yeah, to sum it up, starting off with the 2016 map, we're going to see Maine go full blue. We're going to see Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Michigan rebuild that so-called blue wall. Ohio is still very red, so it's getting redder, so it's going to stay Republican. Iowa is also going redder, and it trends the same way as Ohio does, and there is significantly less voting sites in the state. Nevada's going to stay blue. Arizona's going to stay red. Texas is not going to go red. Obviously, if Texas gets called, it's over. It's game over for Trump. Let's see. Florida is going to stay red. Georgia's going to stay red. North Carolina is going to flip blue. Let's see. Was that everything? Oh, yeah. Nebraska's 2nd district is going to go blue. And there we have it. Final tally will be 295 votes for Biden against 243 against Trump, which is this is definitely an underperformance on Biden's side if you're looking at the general consensus map. In fact, whatever, if we go off of this thing. So yeah, this one, it looks like even the leans, they've already got Biden getting 295. So that means that I've got President Trump almost sweeping all of these undecided states. But I really think that's what's going to happen. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm going to try to get the Senate out video. Obviously, the Senate and the House of Representatives video will be up before Election Day. Or maybe it'll be the morning of Election Day, because I guess it doesn't really matter. The polls won't be closed yet. Let's not take this too seriously. It's just me kind of spitballing, and I wanted to see what you people thought of it. So keep an eye out for my senatorial race video. Look out for my House of Representatives key races video, where I'm actually also going to go into some really local politics down here in Texas. Specifically focusing on something which I think is going to be indicative of the country as a whole in terms of how the Republican Party is going to evolve. potentially. And yeah, that's it. Y'all have a great day. See you in the next video. Hope you like my face cam here, by the way, in the corner inside. So, bye bye.